Thank you for joining us on 24 Plus. I am ABC 24 anchor Pepper Baker. Big news dropped this week. The leader of the free world, is coming to Memphis. President Donald Trump is expected to meet face to face with the Memphis Safe Task Force leaders to highlight their work over the last 6 months. Now, ahead of his visit, we do have one of Trump's staunch supporters at the table today, Tennessee State Senator Brent Taylor. Senator Taylor, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. And Otis normally sits here when he parades as a journalist, when he's really probably more of an activist, but he normally sits there.
He does, and he'll be here shortly because we do have a recording with him. But who else was also supposed to be at the table was State Representative Justin J. Pearson, who also is on the other side of the aisle, but he could not make himself available.
He also has more hair than I do.
That is true. He does, I guess, but he could make himself available today, so we are happy that you were able to, I know you're busy, but that you were able to make some time for us. So first question off the top right now, just how are you feeling about President Donald Trump coming to town?
I'm glad that President Trump is coming to town. I knew this day was going to come when he sent the Memphis Safe Task Force. President Trump, he likes to make sure he wins, and so I knew this would be successful. And this is what a lot of people in Memphis, the business community and Memphians in general have been waiting for, and that is for the president to come following the Memphis Safe Task Force and to announce to the country that Memphis is one of the safest cities in America. And so I'm glad he's coming, and I'm glad he's meeting with the Memphis Safe Task Force and the folks that have been doing the hard work for the last 6 months to cut our crime in half.
When did you get word? Did you all or the Republican Party of Shelby County know that this would happen? We did see Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi come in town, but did you all know that President Donald Trump would eventually make his way here?
I did find out in advance, and they asked if I would not release that until the White House was able to do so. And I told them, I said, well, can I let Pepper Baker know? And they said, no, you can't even let Pepper know. So I did have a couple days advance warning that he was coming.
Okay. Are you planning to be involved or accompany Trump at all on his visit?
I did receive an invitation, and unfortunately, it's really difficult timing for those of us in the legislature because we're in session. I actually have a Judiciary Committee meeting Monday, and I have some bills that I have worked with Senator Blackburn on, like the Memphis Safe Task Force Accountability Act, which hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk about that, where any charges that stem from the Memphis Safe Task Force that are assigned to state court, that the DA can't downgrade those charges, or if he does, he has to make certain certifications about that. I've got that in committee as well. So we'll see how the schedule works out. Obviously, I'd like to be here to personally thank the president for doing what he's doing for Memphis to make Memphis matter by making Memphis safe. But we'll see how my schedule works out.
Was that a conversation you ever had over the phone with his team, or did you talk to him directly?
No, I've never spoken to him directly. I'm not even sure he knows I exist, but
I'm sure he does.
But maybe. But I've not spoken to him personally. But I have communicated with members of his team that are close to the White House, and all during the time the Memphis Safe Task Force been here.
Okay, and I think that's the big question. Everybody kind of, including media outlets, want to know, when will he actually land, and where all will he visit, and when will he make his way out? So is there anything you can tell us about what you expect Trump's visit will look like on Monday?
Well, he'll come in on a big blue and white plane and land, and the White House is keeping all the details. It's my understanding that he will have an event where people are invited. Like I said, I've received my invitation. Then there may be other activities that the White House may roll out in the coming days before his visit on Monday.
So business for you is kind of taking precedent at the legislature over the president.
Well, I was elected to be a senator in Nashville and to do my job there. And if it works out where I can join the president and personally thank him for his efforts here in Memphis with the Memphis Safe Task Force, obviously I will do that. And I'm just trying to arrange my schedule in Nashville and make sure my bills, if I can't move them, that I from Monday that I need to be there to run the bills, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
I'll let you know. You'll be the first to know.
And I think that's a good reason. I think people can understand that. So not everybody is really of the same, it's having the same idea as you are or feelings about President Trump coming to town. So just to make sure we are balanced on both sides, we talked to State Representative Justin J. Pearson last night. Our Lauren Turman reporter was able to grab him for a quick 5-minute interview. So I wanted to play a clip when she asked him what he thought about President Trump coming to town.
The president has absolutely nothing to say to Memphis, honestly to the United States of America. He's in the Epstein files. He's launched a war that is costing us billions of dollars. Gas is going up. The cost of everything is going up, and he's doing absolutely nothing to improve the lives of people that I represent and that I serve in this community. So he has nothing that he could say in our city that's worthwhile, and he shouldn't even come here.
So some strong words there, but I mean, if you follow Representative Pearson, that's not it's not surprising. But just your reaction to hearing that.
Well, first of all, as you know, Representative Pearson, as you said, has strong words a lot, which is unfortunately has rendered somebody who is very articulate, but his position on the issues have rendered him about as useless as a nutrition chart on a bag of ice. And the fact that he is opposing President Trump's visit here is unfortunate. And he mentioned in that soundbite you just played that he's done nothing to improve the lives of his constituents, which quite frankly just BS. I mean, you ask any Memphian on the street and they will tell you they feel safer today than they did 6 months ago when the Memphis Safe Task Force arrived. So I just think he's clearly wrong, and Memphians are better for the task force having come here. Look, we've all heard the stories of people who are out now enjoying their neighborhood, walking their neighborhood. I receive a lot of calls from my constituents who live in East Memphis, Germantown, and Collierville who've not been downtown in 5 and 10 years, attending Grizzlies games and going to the Orpheum and eating at world famous Rendezvous for the ribs. And for them to say that he's done nothing for his constituents is just hyperbolic.
We have heard from Memphians. We've done a pretty good job with reporting just randomly throughout this whole time, the last 6 months, about what people are feeling. That note has changed somewhat, I would say, in the beginning when no one really knew what to expect. But throughout, there has been both sides, some people really severely impacted and others who do feel safer. So that continues to be part of the discussion. Let's talk about the Memphis Safe Task Force specifics. So this week we reported that since they came into town late September, last fall, there's been over 7,100 arrests, dozens of those tied to homicides, and thousands of illegal guns taken off of Memphis streets. Now, I do want to ask you about just the messaging was supposed to be violent criminals, but there have been some reports that there were some minor infractions, people who felt wrongly arrested, or an intensified enforcement over maybe non-violent crimes. So, one thing I wanted you to react to was that there's been people who are saying that you sure do have a lot to say about Memphis when you, reside on the outskirts. So just kind of reacting to all of that.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I'll take your first,
work, yes.
The work. Look, the Memphis Safe Task Force has made thousands of arrests. Thousands of guns, as you mentioned, are off the street. But look, the weak link in all this remains our Soros-backed DA who just refuses to prosecute people. And that's one reason I have worked with Senator Blackburn. We have sent a series of letters to the DA explaining why he is letting violent criminals out on the streets. And all of this work that's going into the Memphis Safe Task Force and all of these arrests, many of those will be tried in state court, and that's why we're doing what we can to hold the Soros-backed DA accountable to ensure that he prosecutes crimes the way he was elected to do. And so we'll continue to hold him accountable. As it relates to where I live, look, half my district is in Memphis, and I represented Memphis on the city council in the late 1900s. I was the youngest person ever elected in the history of the city. I love Memphis. I could have lived anywhere. I'm originally from Mississippi. I could have lived anywhere in the country, but I chose Memphis because I love Memphis. And even though I represent East Memphis and some of the suburbs, what happens in Memphis impacts all of West Tennessee. And that's why when I've talked about working to make Memphis matter, it's really about what happens in Memphis impacts the suburbs, it impacts West Tennessee, and if we can solve Memphis's crime problem, it will benefit West Tennessee. I've told my colleagues in the Senate, if you want to reduce violent crime in Memphis, if you want to reduce violent crime in the state, you have to do it in Memphis. And it's just like our school board. And we're going to talk about that perhaps in another interview, where if you want to improve educational outcomes for students statewide, you have to do it in Memphis. Memphis is the center of improving the lives of Tennesseans.
Okay, and Representative Pearson also spoke on the fact that maybe there's a little bit of a blind eye to poverty being a part of the problem here and getting to the root of that. So let's hear what he had to say last night.
This unsafe task force has led to the deportation of families, has led to high-speed chases that have led to people dying. There has been nothing that I could say that this administration has done that has been to the benefit for the long term of our community other than more traumatization and terrorization. We haven't ended the gun violence epidemic. We haven't increased the amount of resources to end poverty. Those are the things that people in this community want to see. None of us want to see crime. Nobody wants to be impacted by it, and too many of us have. That's a fact. But what we know is the root cause of crime is poverty, and nothing's been done about that.
So is there a little bit of a point here where maybe the Federal Enforcement Task Force is one path, it's one approach, but the resources diverted to that, could there have been resources more so diverted to helping poverty?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, the root cause of crime is criminals. It's not poverty. There are far more people who are poor that have never committed a crime in their life, would never think of committing a crime just because they're poor. We have heard for generations people just like Representative Pearson that say we have to solve the crime, we have to deal with poverty. The Memphis Safe Task Force is proof that you don't have to tackle poverty to reduce crime. We've reduced crime without necessarily hitting those the root causes of poverty and all those kind of things. Yes, we want to lift people from poverty. There are some who are trapped in poverty that do resort to crime. But if there are consequences to committing crime, even those people won't commit them or think twice about doing it. But let me tell you what impacts. And if you want to improve people who are in poverty, the best way to do it is to ensure that we don't have illegal aliens here competing for the same jobs that Memphians need. Not only are they competing for those same jobs, but they also, illegal aliens have to have a place to live. So they're competing with Memphians who are needing housing, and we have a limited housing stock here in Memphis, and they're simply driving up the price of housing. If we want to help people who are in poverty, it's to make sure that we don't have illegal aliens here that shouldn't be here, so that they're not taking jobs away from Memphians and that they're not driving up housing costs. So that's why the ICE component of the Memphis Safe Task Force really is helping address those long-term or the root causes, as Representative Pearson said, of crime. And so I think at the end of this, we'll find that Memphis is a safer place for everybody, including those who are in poverty.
You have touched on the ICE component here before. So, and you have a way with punchy lines and going maybe viral for them. So one clip we had in a previous story I pulled of you touching on ICE. So if we can hear that.
I like my Memphis the way I like my tea. I like it with a lot of ice. And so I'm hopeful that they will come in and enforce immigration laws. And if somebody is in the country illegally, particularly if they're breaking the law, that they will be arrested, handed over to ICE, and they will begin the deportation proceedings.
Yeah, and that didn't really sit well with a lot of people because it felt to those impacted that it was insensitive. So, you know, do you stand by that, or is there a little bit more of a compassionate tone that you may take now?
Well, it is compassionate, and I just explained why. Illegal aliens here that aren't supposed to be here, they are taking jobs from Memphians because they work for lower wages. They come in and they rent housing that is intended for Memphians, and they drive up the cost of housing. And look, I hear the critics, they talk about the fact that, well, the Memphis Safe Task Force was supposed to come in and only go for the worst first and tackle violent crime. Look, most Memphians are not necessarily fearful of violent crime. What they tire of are the property crimes, the quality of life crimes. And people, the reason they didn't go downtown for all those years is not because they necessarily thought they were going to be murdered or carjacked. They just didn't want to come out from a Grizzlies game and have their car window broken into, or to go down to the rendezvous and come out and have somebody, rob them and their family coming out of the rendezvous. And so it's those quality of life crimes that Mayor Giuliani, when he was mayor of New York, made New York the safest big city in America. And he did it by going after low-level street quality of life crimes. And when you do that, the large crimes take care of themselves. And the proof is in New York City. He made New York the safest big city in America. And we're well on our way with President Trump's Memphis Safe Task Force, making Memphis one of the safest cities in America.
Okay, so is there a vetting process here? Okay, I hear you on the violent crime part, but for immigrants who committed, maybe it's a traffic violation or whatnot, and are being torn away from families, is there some sort of path to try to help them get citizenship instead of resulting to deportation?
Well, first of all, they shouldn't be here. They are here because they are here illegally. That is against the law. And law enforcement does not get the choice to decide which laws they're going to enforce and which ones they're not. If people feel strongly enough about our immigration laws, then they need to run for Congress and change immigration law. But the laws are today that you're not supposed to be here if you're not, if you don't have proper documentation and you didn't come in on a visa and you didn't overstay your visa. That the immigration laws are decided by Congress, and until they change them, the law is the law, and we need to enforce it. And so that would be my answer to that is, again, they're taking jobs and housing away from Memphians, and they shouldn't be here anyway. And the last thing I'd say, the worst is when you have an illegal alien here and they break the law, and we should deport them. And because we have enough homegrown criminals without importing criminals.
Okay. We are on the back end of this interview because we're running out of time here, so let's just take it back to the front again. Anything that you're able to tell us? I know you said the White House is keeping the details really tight, but just anything that you can share with us about President Donald Trump's visit?
Well, let me say this. Who would have thought when I first became senator nearly 4 years ago, and I started working to make Memphis matter, and what I mean by making Memphis matter is to get better outcomes for Memphis. Who would have thought that would have started in the streets of Memphis, gone all the way to the state capitol, and then make its way all the way to the Oval Office where the President of the United States sends the Memphis Safe Task Force to Memphis. Why? Because he wants to make Memphis matter by making Memphis safe. And I welcome his visit and welcome his continued work here in Memphis because I think we all ought to work with President Trump and Governor Lee to make Memphis matter.
Are there any other elected officials that are going to be seen visibly with Donald Trump on his visit?
Well, I'm sure the governor will be here, and certainly Senator Marsha Blackburn, I'm sure will be here as well. And by the way, there's been no stronger partner of mine in making Memphis matter than Senator Blackburn. And as I mentioned previously, she and I have been working on a series of letters to our district attorney to try to hold him accountable for these charges that are coming from the Memphis Safe Task Force to ensure that he does his damn job, that he actually prosecutes these people that are being handed him in state court. So far, the evidence is he's not. In the month of December, 2/3 of the people that were arrested for violent crimes were let out with no jail time. And that is completely unacceptable. And Senator Blackburn and I will put a stop to it. And in the event she becomes governor, I will continue to work with her in that capacity to make Memphis matter by making Memphis safe.
We do have D.A. Mulroy coming in studio on Monday.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Part of our live coverage as we track President Donald Trump's visit.
You should ask him when he's going to start prosecuting these violent criminals that are being handed to him by the Memphis Safe Task Force.
Well, we will certainly bring up some of your points that you've made here to him to get his side. But any county or city elected leaders or mayors that you know of that will be with Donald Trump?
Well, Mayor Harris won't be there.
Right.
Matter of fact, Mayor Harris has rendered himself as about as useless as a bucket under a bull. And thank God in Greyhound he'll be gone in a couple of months. By the way, if Mayor Harris, he went 7.5 years, we never heard anything from him. this last year, it's like he ordered a backbone from Amazon. It showed up. He put it on and went outside and decided, I'm going to pick an issue, and he's picked the wrong side of every issue. If he invites you to a Harlem Globetrotters game, just know he will root for the Washington Generals. He has a knack for picking the wrong team.
And since we brought that up, should any notes on his lawsuit against the National Guard deployment, particularly pointing to Governor Lee's decision, do you think the judge, he got a little bit headway with the judge putting that block, but then it wasn't like an immediate action. But, did you think he would even make it that far? And does it really have any merit to hold up?
Well, look, the judges we have in these liberal counties, that was a show trial. He got what he wanted at the trial level. The media, present company accepted. Y'all do a fantastic job of blowing that up and make it look like he had some big victory. But they make very little news when the appellate court overturns that or the Supreme Court overturns it. They were recently at the appeals court, and I watched that appeal, and I believe ultimately the state will prevail, and hopefully the media in Memphis will make as big a damn deal about us winning at the state level as they did at the show trial level at the county level.
Okay, we'll do our best. 2 last questions. So one word that you could describe your feelings about Donald Trump coming on Monday.
Well, I'm just
saying. Yeah, a little saying.
I'm just grateful that he's coming, and he has proven that he has really reinstilled in a lot of people that Memphis really does matter, and that the way we were living with this culture of criminality, we don't have to live that way. And I think that's the biggest takeaway when the Memphis Safe Task Force finally leaves, is for Memphians to realize we didn't have to live the way we were living. And I think that's what will help keep crime down in the future, because they're going to do a better job, I think, the people will, of holding their elected officials accountable and ensuring that crime doesn't get out of control again.
Okay. A lot of people want to know if Mayor Young will be there. Do you think he will?
I don't know. I mean, I've not spoken to Mayor Young about that, but I will say Mayor Young has done an excellent job of supporting the Memphis Safe Task Force in areas that he could support. He has said from the very beginning that he did not necessarily want the National Guard here. He does not like the fact that ICE is here, but he understands those decisions are made north of his position, and he has indicated he is willing to work with anybody that wants to improve the lives of Memphians. And so whether he'll be with the president Monday remains to be seen, but whether he is or he isn't, Mayor Young has done what he can to work with the Memphis Safe Task Force, despite having some reservations about components of it.
Okay. And lastly, you did mention that you are doing some work at the Tennessee legislature, and that's kind of taking up your time between Monday and Thursday. So I want to give you the opportunity to just speak even more so on your work with Senator Marsha Blackburn and anything else viewers need to keep an eye out for. Yeah,
Senator Blackburn and I have worked together for almost 2 years on this effort to make Memphis matter. And I will say this, Pepper, she and I were in a meeting with the FBI. She invited me to a debriefing. The only people who were in the room were Senator Blackburn, myself, and our respective staff with the FBI. And the FBI told me, they said, I want you to know that Operation Viper, which was the precursor to the Memphis Safe Task Force,
yes.
He said that the only reason Memphis was on that list was because Senator Blackburn insisted that Memphis be on the list, and they actually had to take another city off of that list to put Memphis on there. Operation Viper came, they did 500 arrests on federal charges, and then that led to the Memphis Safe Task Force. And so, look, I was kind of, a lonely voice in the wilderness until Senator Blackburn called me, and she said, I want to work with you on this, and we have made a lot of progress in the last 18 months.
You did mention, and I want to squeeze this question here, you mentioned Operation Viper, and that was before the task force, but the Memphis-Shelby County Crime Commission had data that local law enforcement was trending, making crime go down or trending that way before the task force. So the credit here, obviously the Memphis Safe Task Force exacerbated those numbers, but is it lost on, are we losing the idea that local law enforcement was on the right track, and did it need, if they had been able to keep going, did it rise to the level of really needing federal agents?
Well, what's lost is the media Some in the media have talked about how crime was trending down, but they never talk about when that began. And that began in 2023. And no one wants to give credit where credit is due, because it was John Gillespie, Representative Gillespie, and myself that was when I was elected, and he and I passed legislation where we dismantled the standing bail order. I worked with Governor Lee, and we sent in the surge of THP officers. I passed legislation along with Representative Gillespie that stopped the idiotic policies of the Memphis City Council where the police couldn't do routine traffic stops. It's when I began holding DA Mulroy accountable for him to do his damn job. Those are the things that were bringing down the crime rate. And it became turbocharged when the Memphis Safe Task Force got here. And just because it was trending downward anyway, it was not going down fast enough. And the thing that the Memphis Safe Task Force was able to do that slow downward trend would never have been able to do is to change people's perception about crime. Crime was going down, trending downward because of the reasons I just mentioned about the legislation that I passed and Representative Gillespie. But that was not enough to change the perception about crime. The Memphis Safe Task Force immediately changed people's perception about crime. People feel safer, and as a result, we realize now we didn't have to live that way.
Okay, I think that's an excellent note to end on. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're going to be a busy man in probably the next foreseeable future, but thank you for making time for us.
Glad to be here, and I hope I gave y'all some stuff to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm sure Obsessed Otis won't agree with anything I've said, and maybe some of the others will. All
right, Senator Taylor, thank you so much. And I want to send a reminder to our viewers that we are going to be streaming live starting 5 a.m. all the way through to 6:30 p.m. on Monday, live tracking all of President Trump's visit to Memphis. So be sure to join us on 24 Plus starting at 5 a.m. on Monday to be sure you have all the up-to-date coverage on the president coming to town. But thank you so much for tuning in with us here, and stay with ABC 24 for all of your news.